RK2020, enjoy high-quality gaming experience, it says on the box. You would think, given the year that we're having, that companies would think better than to put 2020 on the box of their product, especially given the way this product has turned out. Let's talk about it. And it defaults to the DS screen. Okay, so this is the RK2020. I'm not actually sure who makes it. I don't think it matters. I just wish they didn't. It is a clone of the ODroid Go Advance. We'll have a look at the physical aspect of it first before looking at what it does and doesn't do. The case is metal. Aluminium, I guess. Aluminium, did you know that's an English variation on an American word? The Americans call it aluminum, and English people assume that, like many other words, the Americans can't say our words right. Nope, it's the other way around. We changed it because aluminium just sounds more intelligent. Not many people, no, probably lots of people know that. Whatever, anyway, I digress. Physically, I like this up to a point. I bought it because of the metal case and how I really like the Anbernic RK2020M. That feels lovely. It's a lovely handheld. I thought, maybe they got their act together, because the plastic version of this, people generally say, horrible build quality. So, what do I think? Well, charging port, it's USB-C, you've got USB-A input to plug memory storage stuff into. You put your ROMs in through there. Audio socket, on button. It's not an off button, it's just an on button. L1 and 2, R1 and 2, there. Fine, actually. Underneath, micro SD card slot. That's where the speaker is. One speaker. It's not stereo. Nothing on the sides. Grippy things on the back, just like on the 280M and other handhelds now. I think the 350M is like that as well. They've got 3 little holes here, so you can see what the lights are doing inside, which previously you would have seen through the case on the plastic version. So that's clever. Start and select. D-pad, not great. It's not spongy, it's what I would describe as notchy. And we'll talk about why that is in a minute. The analog stick, it's got a rubber thing on top of it, which didn't come on it. It had just a nasty plasticky thing that it was horrible and has been universally panned. But once you put this rubber thing on it, this analog stick is actually lovely. I really, really like it. And the thing that sets this apart from many other little analog nubs is the self-centering isn't too strong. I find on a great many games you lose all the precision of movement, because while you've not got much travel, the self-centering is so strong that you can't really get fine movements. They're all or nothing, and that's not what you want. You wind up using it like a D-pad, and if that's how you wind up using it, you might as well not have it. And usually I don't use it, I just use the D-pad. But this one is really good. The face buttons. I bet the camera's not going to focus on this. Can you see around the outer edges there's a line? No, you definitely can't see. There's a line, and below it what looks like powder, and that is exactly what it is. That powder is ground plastic, because these buttons sit really tight in the hole, or their positioning is not precise enough, so that they're touching the metal. The plastic is touching the metal, so when you push them, they're grinding their edges. That means they feel horrible. There's like, they are notchy. They're just, ew. They're not oh, I've been adding things to my favourites. I didn't want to do that. That's what happens when you randomly push buttons. Yeah, the feel of these buttons is, they work fine, but they shouldn't feel like that. So that's the physical aspect. Let's talk about functionality and what it does. Okay, so I'm not sure if it's the operating system or the user interface, but whatever. It's called Emulate. It's the thing that sits between the kernel and RetroArch, which actually runs most of the emulators. And it gives you a nice front end. We can see all of the systems that are installed on here, and well, it emulates most of them. It's an awful lot like OpenDingux in the way it works and the kind of stuff that you get on here, like the ports and stuff. Emulation Station, that's part of this as well. It's very pretty, so you think this is a quality item. Yeah. The problem is, it doesn't always work, and the difficulty is in knowing, is that because the emulator is not good, or your ROMs are not good? Does it work or not? Sometimes you just can't tell. Things like Nintendo 64, well, let's have a look. I've only bothered to put the one game on here. Okay, stuttery start. Has it kept my controller mappings? Because I had to go at this early. Oh yes, we can steer. I had to go earlier and I couldn't steer, and I had to go into the emulator and tweak that, and indeed tweak the settings as much as possible to try and make it play straight out of the box. Well, straight out of the box you don't use this thing anyway, because the whole... If you didn't watch my previous video, I seriously recommend that you do. I'll link to it below. Out of the box this thing is almost useless. So N64 emulation, it's not perfect. There is some stuttering going on. Mario Kart is not a very demanding game to run. You're not going to be playing GoldenEye on here. If you're really fussy, you probably won't even be playing this, but it's adequate. At a push, yeah, it's just about getting away with it. Some stuttering here and there, but in the main game, in the racing, it's alright. What button? How do I... yeah, okay, I can't use my weapons. The controls aren't configured properly at all. Honestly, you would think. I mean, this isn't down to the people who've made the handheld. It's just that the emulator doesn't come pre-configured. You would think that it would, you know, at least... There wouldn't necessarily be the right buttons, but you would think that the buttons... You should be able to fire your weapons even by pushing the wrong button. You know, you should be able to try every single button and have it do something, but no. So, meh. Anyway, here we go. To exit the emulator, you've got to push two buttons and then push them again, start and select. One of the things they did when they made this was reduce the number of buttons on it. So you have to do that, start and select, twice. I don't know if you had to do that with the ODroid Go Advance. You have no reset button on here. So if you get locked in like a game that won't let you couldn't exit the game, couldn't turn off the system because that's not an off button. But anyway, we'll continue looking at what we've got on here and what works and what doesn't. Game Boy Color, that works, you would expect it to. Game Boy Advance, that works just fine. We will, let's have a, no, that's the wrong button. Oh, come on. Oh, good God. That button, it's inconsistent. Some things, different buttons or the same buttons do different things depending on context. Doom 2, because we tried that on that little V90 Power Kitty thing the other day and it was like no chance. So we'll see how that runs on here. So you will have seen how it ran on the Power Kitty thing the other day and it was not playable. This, I mean, the frame rate's not great, but I'm guessing it wasn't great on the GBA, so that... Do you know... I don't remember this. I was never a fan of Doom 2. I found it too hard. But anyway, it's working. It's certainly playing it a lot better than that Power Kitty thing did. Probably can't see it very well, because I'm... yeah, it's working about as well as the GBA would play it, I imagine. It's fine, I think. Yeah. So, PC ports and homebrew and stuff. SG-1000, I haven't tried that, but I would imagine it works fine. Same with Master System, same with Game Gear. Honestly, I don't want to try those because I just don't like them. Mega Drive works fine. 32X works fine. Mega CD, can't make it work. On every other handheld I've used that emulates the Mega CD, I can get that to work. You've got to put the BIOS files in the right place, but that's all there is to it. This, no. I put the BIOS files in, I name them what it wants them to be named as, but it doesn't want to know. So that's annoying. Dreamcast, yes, let's have a look. I've only got 2 games on here because honestly they're the only 2 games that I can make work that I've tried, and I've tried a few. Res, which is great because there actually aren't... I'm not a massive fan of the Dreamcast. I don't want to play too much of this because actually I'm going to turn the audio. I don't want to get done for copyright. I really need to invert my X and Y. But this works absolutely fine, which is great because I'm playing like a div. I love Res, and to be able to play it on a little handheld is great. Also, other videos you may have seen on other channels where they've demonstrated the Dreamcast, they've left it on the default screen resolution, which was lower than a standard Dreamcast resolution. They've had it on 320 by 240 or something, and it looked awful. But you can increase it to 480 by whatever, and it looks much better. And it still runs at a decent speed, so that's cool. I say it runs at decent. Res runs at a decent speed. We'll get out of that before we get done for audio. Blah. Crazy Taxi. Oh god. Yeah, okay. I will kill the sound on that. No, that's the wrong button. Duh. Had to remap the controls for this. We will mute that because it's got commercial music on it. And while it's great, it would get me a copyright strike or something like that. Come on, get on with it. Yeah, definitely had to remap the controls on this. It was very awkward to get it running, but once I did, okay, wrong button. It's awkward because normally you would have like analog triggers to do the accelerator, where what we're doing here is all or nothing, which means the car spins its wheels very often, and the handling is very twitchy, like stupidly so. but you can get a decent frame rate. You can play the game, probably better on the D-pad actually. Whoops. You can have fun with it. It's good enough for a laugh, and I do like Crazy Taxi. Yeah. So that runs really quite well, which is pleasing. But every other game I've tried to load on it, which is a few, it just doesn't want to know. It won't run them, so it's very limited. Shame, but still. Spectrum. Well, yes, it runs, but I can't bring up the keyboard, so I can't play Jetpack. You need to be able to press 4 and 5 to enable Kempston joystick emulation. Can't do it. So unless the game is Kempston compatible straight out of the box, unless you can either configure the joypad to like a button press represents a key press. I can't make it do that. You might be able to, but I haven't had much luck with it. Neo Geo works fine, PlayStation works fine, PSP. I've tried a few games on here. This is it won't play Space Invaders Extreme, and if it can't play that, well, because that's not a demanding game. So we'll use this. No, it's a standalone. I want to turn the volume down, but I can't because it's a standalone emulator, which means that the key combination you do for volume doesn't work on here. Can you see that? I have tweaked and tinkered and everything that I possibly can to get the frame rate playable, and there. It sort of works, but then you get these stutters that just ruin it. So, and this is like an easy game to emulate. It's one of the easiest. It's one of the least demanding. You'd have to be really, really bored, or really, really love Wipeout, and be desperate to play it. To play it like that, look, no, not good enough. So yeah, PSP. Just forget about it. It's just not good enough. All games, yeah, favourites. You can have favourites. DS. Now, this does not come pre-installed. You have to install it yourself, and to do that, you need to install a Wi-Fi dongle and connect it to your Wi-Fi, which you can do through settings when you work out where they are and stuff. It's not overly complex, but I did do it wrong the first time. But anyway, you have to install it, and then you have to configure it, because straight out of the box it displays both screens at the same time, which means it's tiny, where you can configure it to respond to a button. It means a lot of messing about, and the thing is, to configure it, you've got to attach a keyboard. You can't configure it through options on screen using the D-pad and face buttons. You've got to connect a keyboard, and that's just stupid. But it's because this is like a desktop emulator. Can you see the mouse pointer there? We're running on a Linux handheld. Oops. And so it's expecting a keyboard. You've got to plug a keyboard in, press M. And then when you've done that, all of the on-screen instructions and options and things are tiny. They are so tiny, and the resolution on this thing so inadequate to display that kind of thing, that you actually can't read the menu options properly. The font is just mangled by the screen. So it's hard work. You've got to guess a lot of the time. Does that thing say what you think it might say? Well, it might, but it might not. You've got to mess around. But if you take the time to do that, this thing will emulate the DS quite nicely, as you can see here. And that's very pleasing. It plays DS games better than it plays N64 games. And of course you do have that option to specify how the screen is laid out, meaning we can play this. Look, stylus, yay, controlling that with the analog stick. So that's cool. I mean, you do get the weirdness of having a split screen thing. Normally there would be like the hinge across the middle, which they compensated for on the DS, but you don't have it here, so it kind of makes it all a bit weird. Oh, and it's struggling there, it's stuttering. Okay, well, it seems to play okay. Sound was a bit off, but whatever. DS is quite impressive. MAME. Well, you got various different versions of MAME on here, and which one you use will affect the experience you have. The one it defaults to, MAME Advance, the controls don't work out of the box. It just, you got to configure the controls for each game, and it doesn't save them. So that was stupid. So I selected one of the other MAME cores, MAME 2003, and it works, but the ROM set I've got is like the ROM set that works for MAME for all, and this doesn't play all of those. And vector games look bloody horrible on it. I'm not going to load it because I am aware that the battery is running out on here, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit as well. 2600 works, 7800 works. I cannot get the Atari 5200 to work at all. Lynx, that works nicely. WonderSwan and WonderSwan Color, do you know what? I haven't actually tried them, so whatever. Capcom CPS 1, 2 and 3. Well, 1 works fine, 3 works fine. I can't make any of the CPS 2 games I've got work. Don't know why. I'm guessing it just doesn't like the ROM set that I've got, but there you go. ColecoVision is fine. Commodore 64, well, yes, it works. It's tricky because keyboard, but I have managed to load Buggy Boy on it, and it works nicely. And then we're back here to scripts, which is where you find things like File Manager, Install Drastic, which is your DS emulator. You load that from here. Load of other stuff. There's a copy USB ROMs to device. You can stick a USB memory doofer in there, and so long as you got to create a named file, and you've got to name it very specifically and put that in your folder with all your ROMs. I didn't bother messing around with that. Yeah, a load of stuff that you really don't. I haven't used anyway. Really, File Manager and Install Drastic are the only things you're gonna need there. Okay, summing up, the RK2020. You know, I wasn't even gonna make this video. It is a system that is so flawed that I didn't feel it deserved my time and attention, as my initial experience with it was so bad. But it's been paid for with money from Patreon, from my Patreon supporters, viewers, who I think deserve better than that initial video. So the system doesn't deserve it, but really you lot do. So here we are, second video. I had to basically, from that video with the black screen, I had to let the battery run completely flat so that the thing shut down, and then reinstall the firmware and basically start from scratch, which allowed me to test all of the emulators and get them configured and try and get the best possible performance out of it. So the hardware, which, let's be honest, whoever the manufacturer of the RK2020 is, they did not design it, they ripped it off. The hardware itself, the specs, are good. It's a reasonably capable system. It's a step up from things like the RG350 in terms of power, not a massive leap, but it enables it to run things like the DS, the Dreamcast, the N64, not perfectly, but you know, those things couldn't do that. So it's a step up. But it is so shoddy the way they've done it. Cutting corners, cutting costs, lacking buttons that the original ODroid Go Advance had, so you've got to do key combinations that are inconsistent depending on context, what you're doing, what emulator you've got running. It's a nasty experience. Build quality of the plastic RK2020s was, it had a reputation of being really, really shoddy. So they've made this metal case, and you would think that'll improve things, won't it? Well, okay, it doesn't break, so bits don't fall off, but other than that, the execution and attention to detail is still piss poor. The buttons scrape inside the case, which is nasty. The battery life is appalling. They had a problem on the original RK220 where it wouldn't charge properly. You could leave it on charge for ages and ages and it just didn't fully charge. That they've solved. It charges. It charges in about 2 hours. It discharges in about 2 hours as well. You can run it flat in 2 hours, no problem. But worse than that, it doesn't hold the charge overnight. If it's not running, it flattens. I was quite surprised while I was recording this video today. I had charged the thing overnight. It had a full charge when I went to bed. I started doing the review this morning, less than a quarter of a charge. It flattened while I was recording the video. I've had to record this in multiple parts, which actually renders it bloody useless, really. Never mind all the piss poor execution in terms of shortcuts, cutting corners and whatnot with the hardware. The fact that the operating system is just cobbled on. Emulate is probably really quite capable if it's done properly, configured properly and everything, but it's all just cobbled together, which makes for a poor experience. But even forgiving all of that, if you charge your thing, you charge the device with the intention of, say, you're going out the next day, or you leave it in your car, you know, charge it up, put it in your car, you think, I'll use that at some point. When you come to play it, your battery's going to be flat. It doesn't hold the charge. You're not going to charge this thing just so you can play it. You pick it up, the battery's flat, sod it, play something else. It renders it pointless. And it's 109, well, they're about £105 now. The plastic ones are cheaper, but you know about them, they're shite. This is also shite, but it's expensive shite. So my final ultimate conclusion is the hardware has significant potential, but the execution is so utterly piss poor that I cannot recommend it in any way whatsoever. Even people who enjoy tinkering and trying to make these things work would find this aggravating. I love trying to make these handhelds work. This one, I hated every moment of it. It aggravated me massively. And for like £105, no, absolutely not. Cannot recommend. Would just don't buy it. I said it in the previous video. My opinion has not changed, even though I've tested it more thoroughly. The experience of it black screening, the batteries flattening, buttons not responding, all the things that are wrong with it. It's the most powerful of the Chinese handhelds that I have tried so far. It's also the worst by a wide margin. Don't buy it. Okay. Thank you to my Patreon supporters for enabling me to buy this thing, to bring you this review, because honestly, I've seen reviews of this that can't have been honest. There can be no, yeah, it's okay, there are some flaws, but you can forgive. You cannot forgive this thing. Honest review, you know, I paid for this, granted with your money, but this was not given to me by the manufacturer or a distributor, so I can be brutal about it. Do not buy this. Okay, thank you to my Patreon supporters for enabling me to be honest. More honest than, you know. Okay, thank you for watching.
Not without a knighthood, not a chance. Anyway, Benway who? Oh, you lot. Hello? What? Oh, please subscribe. Thank you. Can I go now?